Hey everyone, and welcome to our study group for PP 5361. I'm so glad you could make it. Today, we're going to dive deep into something that's at the absolute core of great leadership. And honestly, just living a better life. And that's really knowing and managing yourself. So yeah, this is our little session for theory and management of public service organizations. We're breaking down chapter 2 of the required text, managing human behavior in public and nonprofit organizations. We're just going to unpack all the key ideas together. So, grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's jump right in. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First up, we're going to talk about why that ancient advice, know thyself, is, believe it or not, more important than ever. Then we'll pop open the toolkit and check out some really practical frameworks for building that self-awareness. After that, we'll get real and talk about the inner barriers that hold us all back sometimes. And to wrap it all up, we'll focus on how to turn all this insight into actual meaningful action. Sound good? All right, let's start with the absolute foundation. There's this simple truth, right? Before you can even think about leading other people effectively, you have got to understand the one person you're with 24/7. And that's you. Self-awareness isn't some fluffy soft skill. It's the solid ground that all great leadership is built on. I mean, the management legend Peter Drucker just nailed it. It's not just about a simple list of your strengths and weaknesses. It goes deeper. It's about really understanding what you value deep down and then figuring out where you and only you can make the biggest difference. That's the real starting line for making an impact. And Stephen Covey, he takes this idea even further. He calls self-awareness one of our basic human endowments. Think about that. It's what gives us our ultimate freedom. It's the power to choose how we respond to things, the power to actually change instead of just being pushed around by our circumstances. Okay, so for a real-world story, let's talk about Jeffrey Katzenberg, the CEO of DreamWorks Animation. Early in his career, the guy was brilliant, no doubt, but he also had this reputation for being, well, intense. They called him a screamer and a shredder. There's this legendary story that he once greeted an employee at 6:30 in the morning by saying, "Good afternoon." That tells you everything you need to know about the kind of pressure he created. But then came a massive wake-up call. He got fired from Disney, and that really forced him to take a hard look in the mirror. He came up with this technique he called a 5-second tape delay, basically a mental pause button to stop and think before he spoke. He had to realize that his non-stop, pedal-to-the-metal pace wasn't actually inspiring people. It was just burning them out. His transformation is just this incredible example of how self-awareness can completely change your leadership style for the better. So that all begs the question, right? How do we actually do this? How do we build this self-awareness? It's not just about sitting and thinking. Luckily, there are some amazing practical frameworks we can use to get a much clearer picture of who we really are. A fantastic place to start is with Daniel Goleman's model of emotional intelligence. Now, look at the flow here. It all starts from the inside out. It kicks off with self-awareness, just recognizing your own emotions. Once you can do that, you can move to self-management, which is controlling those impulses. And only after you've got that internal stuff down can you really look outward to understand others with social awareness. And then finally, build those strong relationships with social skills. You can't skip the order. It has to start with you. Now here's one cool way to look at it. Keirsey's temperaments. So which one of these sounds like you? Are you an artisan? Playful, adaptable, living in the moment. A guardian? Responsible, loyal, a pillar of the community. A rational? Pragmatic, analytical, always figuring things out. Or an idealist? Enthusiastic, intuitive, always looking for the deeper meaning. Just knowing your general type can give you some amazing clues about your natural default settings. Another really powerful model is the Big Five. This one looks at personality across these different dimensions like openness, agreeableness, and so on. But here's the absolute kicker. After decades of research, the one trait that stands out above all others as the single strongest predictor of job performance is conscientiousness. Being dependable, organized, responsible. And when you think about it, it makes total sense, right? It's the trait that means you actually get things done. Okay, next up is a really fundamental mindset, your locus of control. It's a simple idea, but so profound. It basically asks this: do you believe that you're in the driver's seat of your own life, or do you feel like life is something that just kind of happens to you? Let's make this really simple. Imagine you get a grade back for a class. Is your gut reaction, well, I earned this grade based on how much I studied? That's an internal locus of control. Or is it more like, the teacher was so unfair, or the questions were ridiculous? That's an external one. Study after study shows that people with a strong internal locus of control are more proactive, they achieve more, and they handle stress way better. All right, now let's talk about what really drives you in your career. Edgar Schein's idea of career anchors is fantastic. These are basically your non-negotiables, the core values you just won't compromise on. Are you anchored by a deep need for autonomy and independence? Or maybe it's all about security and stability for you? Or maybe what really gets you out of bed is a dedication to a cause. Knowing your anchor is like having a compass that helps you find a career that's genuinely right for you, not just one that looks good on a resume. So here is a really powerful exercise you can do, like right after this. It's called the lifeline. You literally just draw a line and plot out the major highs and the major lows of your life. What were the turning points, the triumphs, the challenges? Seeing it all laid out like this can reveal some incredible patterns about what shaped you, your resilience, and what you truly value. Okay, so we've got all this great self-knowledge, but even with the best tools, we all have a tendency to get in our own way. So this next part is critical. We have to learn to recognize the internal barriers that can totally sabotage our progress. Look, we all have these. Maybe we get so hyper-focused on our own personal goals that we forget leadership is about lifting other people up. Or we get so worried about how we're coming across that we're afraid to be vulnerable. And a huge one, a really big one, is the imposter phenomenon. That little voice in your head that says you're a fraud and you're about to be found out. Just being able to name these barriers is the absolute first step to taking away their power. Now, this next barrier is tough because it's unconscious. Implicit bias. This is all about the automatic shortcuts our brains make based on stereotypes we've absorbed over our lifetime. The thing is, we all have them. And because they fly under our conscious radar, they can be really sneaky and hard to manage. And if you want to see just how real this is, check this out. In a famous study, researchers sent identical resumes to psychology professors for a lab manager job. The only difference, on half, the name was Brian, and on the other half, it was Karen. The result was staggering. The professors chose to hire Brian over Karen by a 2-to-1 margin. This isn't about people being consciously sexist. It's about these deep, hidden biases that can totally warp our judgment unless we're actively fighting against them. So, we've talked about why this stuff matters. We've looked at the tools, we've faced the barriers. This last part is all about the so what, right? How do we actually take all this insight and make it a real part of our lives? This isn't a one and done kind of thing. It's a lifelong practice. Keep a journal. It really helps organize your thoughts. Find those trusted friends or mentors who will give you the honest truth, not just what you want to hear. Make sure you're finding balance so you don't burn out. And maybe, most importantly, really examine the stories you tell yourself about why you do the things you do. That level of self-honesty, that's where the magic happens. We have covered a ton of ground. But listen, all this knowledge is just potential. The real power comes when you actually do something with it. So I'll leave you with this question. Looking back at everything we talked about, what is the one single first step you're going to take, maybe even today, to know yourself just a little bit better? Your whole journey starts with that one small step.